Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast on what is a magnificent, no, it's not really a magnificent day. I'm just painting a very, very interesting picture. Melbourne Cup Day as it stands in Australia here. Today's November 4. You probably listen to this towards the back end of November, but it is a dreary, typical Melbourne day. And some would say very similar to the weather we see in England every now and then, but it's probably a beautiful day, even though it's nighttime where this man's coming in from. Mr. Dan Norcross coming in from Frodsham, Cheshire in the UK. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Darren. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, and it's great to have you on. We were just talking before that most of my guests come from the US, so talking at this time of day for me is easy because it's sort of late afternoon. But just tell the listeners what time it is where you are right now.
We're just coming up to 10 past 10 in the evening.
And you were saying you were just getting started, is that right? Or you just winding down for the day?
Yeah, just winding up now. Yeah, I've had a busy day, so.
Been a big day. So, mate, looking forward to this conversation. You're the founder and CEO of Regal Relocations. And we're going to delve into your background and what you're doing now and draw some of the lessons from that. You're also a business-to-business growth strategist. You're in the property game right now, but let's go back and let's just talk a little bit about, because you're just sharing before that you've got a more of a technical background in your career. Just tell us a little bit about your background and what's led you to become the founder and CEO of Regal Relocations, and maybe even just share some of the deals you've got on the go at the moment.
Yeah, of course, no problem. So yeah, my background is in engineering. I did mechanical and production engineering at university. Went on to work mainly in the automotive industry. So I did 5 years with General Motors as an engineer in a few different roles, some international. I then did 20 years with Jaguar Land Rover. Started as like a lead engineer and then worked my way up into engineering management. Then I left and did a couple of other things, did a renovation company, and I was actually a butcher and in the Cornwall at one point, and my wife was in the back making pasties, so Cornish pasties.
Okay.
So that didn't work out too well. We were just scraping by really, so I went back into engineering. So I had a couple of other roles, one down in Cornwall, another one back up in Liverpool, and then I went away to the Netherlands for 12 months as head of manufacturing engineering for GKN Aerospace. And then I've been for the last 12 months, until the end of September, working at Bentley Motors as a health and safety manager. And then when I came back from the Netherlands in September last year, I started looking into property strategies and doing a bit of online training and things like that. But I didn't really take it up seriously until the end of October. So it's about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago from now. I started doing I did a training course for a weekend with the guys at Property Abundance, and I signed up to their coaching and mentorship program, and it's all gone from there really. So yeah, it was been really good, really enjoyed it, and it was all part-time alongside work. I was working 10-12 hours a day for most of the year, and then with the deals that I've now got in the pipeline and the deals that I've done, I've managed to be able to finish full-time work and go into property full-time. Or semi-retired, as I like to call it. It's 52, which is not too bad.
Sensational. So in 12 months' time, this is an interesting thing, how quickly time, well, not only how time can go by quickly, but how things can change very quickly if you make some decisions and get surrounded by the right people teaching the right sort of principles. Just tell us a little bit about what you do now, because I know that you've turned a single service accommodation idea into a revenue growth engine. And one of the key things we want to talk about today is your philosophy around creating win-win scenarios, which is not always the case in a lot of sales areas where people are looking to win and benefit for themselves, and sometimes that's at the expense of other parties. So just tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, I guess, your experience over the last 12 months and some of the key principles that you've either brought from your engineering background or you've learned over the last 12 months around this win-win stuff.
Yeah. So from the engineering background, a lot of the things that I do really is everything's data driven. So it's all with the numbers and figures, facts, evidence, and data to back everything up that I
Yeah,
do. What I've tried to do is, as you say, create win-win scenarios. So I started off, and this is the way that I was taught, was to get cash flow originally. So I started off with what's called rent to rents, where we rent a property from a landlord or an agent, and then rent that out or sublet it really with the landlord's permission or the agent's permission to contractors. So there's a massive project, there's £1 billion project going on in our local area. And I saw a Facebook post for demand for 600 people for 2 years for accommodation for them. So I thought, right, I really, I'd been doing the strategies for about 4 months at the time, and I thought I really need to get some properties quickly now. So
mm,
I actually took on, uh, well, I got the keys for 6 properties in 24 hours. So 4 in Chester and 2 in North Wales, and then another 3 days after that. No, 4 days after that, on the Wednesday, I picked up the keys for another property. So I had 7 properties within a week,
yeah,
and they were all on a rent to serviced accommodation sort of model. And the way that I worked out win-win with that is because the landlord or the agents are getting guaranteed rent. They get, the rent paid every month guaranteed from me, so they're winning. They're happy. I had some joint venture partners as well and investors on those deals. So I had with the three in North Wales, I had investors with fixed rate returns. So I was giving them 8% return on investment per annum, which is like more than double you can get on a high interest or a savings account
mm,
or a bond. Um, and the others, the joint venture partners that I'm working with, were all actually from my mentorship program as well, from the program that I was on. I presented to the guys at one of the mentorship days what was going on and this
yeah,
demand for in the area. And I had a few people, like half a dozen people, came up to me afterwards and said they'd like to invest in me and in the projects if I was to find any properties. So I got these properties. I've come up with a creative strategy of how I could make it work for them and make it work for me. So what I offered them, they gave me £10,000 investment, and I said that I would give them 70% of the profits for until their 10,000 was paid back, which should take around between 10 and 12 months. And then I've got a 3-year lease on those properties. We flipped it then and did 70-30 to me in my favor. So
yeah,
they get 30% of the profits for the remainder of the 3 years, which should give them, well, on the basis, the original data that I calculated, it was around 6,600 profit over the 3 years, which is about 22% return on investment, which is great for an investor,
mm,
really. And that's one, I've done more deals since then where the investors are getting much more than that as well now. So with the one of the deals that I'm doing is for a hotel in Scotland for a purchase lease option. So I'm actually renting a hotel for £2,500 a month, and then with the option to buy it at some time in the future in the next 7 years.
yeah,
So what I intend to do, so I've got 12 investors on that project. I offered a 5% share for £10,000 investment, a 5% share of the profits. And then after running the property for 2 years as serviced accommodation, effectively, because I'm changing the hotel into a single holiday let for large groups or families. It's in the Scottish Highlands. It's
hmm,
near a ski resort. It's on the Cairngorms. It's national park. It's on the whiskey trail, so it's near all the whiskey distilleries and everything. So there's loads going for it and great all year round sort of attraction. So I did all the numbers, calculated it all out, ran through it on a question and answer session with the live audience, like with my coach and mentor as well. And he verified all of the calculations that I'd done and what had worked out. And effectively, what it gives the investors on that deal, um, so my plan is 2 years down the line, get a commercial valuation for it. It should be earning about 100,000 a year, which means on the commercial valuation, it's typically between 8 and 12% factor that they use. So
Hmm.
that will give, say it's 10% sort of average. That will give the commercial valuation of that business then as £1 million. So I'll take a 60% loan to value mortgage, get £600,000 out, pay 300,000 to the owner, and then split the other 300,000 between myself and my investors. So I'll get 90,000 and then the investors will get 210,000 between them. So a £10,000 investment initially, they would have been getting around £400 a month profit until that time. And then at that time, a 10,000 investment will give them another 15,000 bonus.
Mm.
And then I said I'd continue to pay them profits until they treble their investment, which I'm expecting to be about 4 years. So, which works out 3 times their investment will be 50% return on investment per year for those investors. But it's great for me because after those 3 years, I get 100% of the profits.
Yeah.
As I say, and that was one where I'd really gone through with the owner of the current owner of the property, and he was having a bit of a terrible time, to be honest. He was the cook, the cleaner, the housekeeper, the barman. He was everything. He did everything basically. So I understood his pain points, and I gave him an option to get out of it. Really, so giving him a monthly income, and then promising to buy his property at some point in the future.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, again, it's a win for the owner, massive win for the investors, and a great win for me as well. So it's a win-win-win, that one. It's everyone's a winner. So
Everyone's a
that's
winner.
yeah. That's one I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago at a networking event actually, and that's what I titled my presentation. Everyone's a winner. My first 300 days.
Love it. Love it. So tell me about that because what you've just shared is a heap of data and a heap of numbers. So
Yeah,
I'd love because a lot of salespeople listening to this, they're not always they probably don't always have a technical background, an analytical background, a logical background. In the deals that you've been doing, and I guess your approach in the 12 months you've been doing this, how much has logic played versus emotion? And have you had to sort of tamper emotions and or deal with other people's emotions in relation to these sort of deals? And particularly when people see numbers that are bigger than what you'd get from a managed fund or putting your money in a bank and stuff like that. How have you actually had to manage, I guess, your emotions and bring it back to, I guess, the logic of making good business decisions?
yeah. Well, as I said, all the decisions have been based on facts, evidence, and data really. So it's been really easy and that's why I've managed to be able to really get investors on board because I've given them a really good deal, to be honest. So it's as I say, it's great for them and it's great for me, but um I think you have to take the emotion out of it really when you're looking at these deals because if you do and if you start thinking, oh, it's a really nice property or I really like it, but the numbers don't stack up, then it's not a good deal.
Mm,
I think someone said, I heard it the other day, some of the best deals you do are the ones that you don't do. So the ones you walk away from are some of the best deals
mm.
that you don't that you don't do sort of thing. So yeah, it was yeah, I've left a few on the table, but they just weren't right. So if they're not right, don't do it. It's don't be led by emotion, definitely.
Um, Easy to say though, not as always easy to do because I'm sure there's been some properties where you thought, oh, geez, that's a nice looking thing. Do you have a
Yeah.
specific strategy where perhaps because I know a lot of people in property investment that they often don't even look at the property. They just purely look at the location, maybe the size of the property in terms of bedrooms or whatever the case might be, and then they just run the numbers. And if the numbers
Yeah,
stack
yeah.
up, then they just buy it. and often they've never actually gone to physically see their property. Is that sort of strategy that you think about in relation to that, where you're coming back to the data, facts, and the evidence?
Yeah, well, I've actually done that on two of the other projects I'm working on at the moment as well. So I'm doing title splits on a block of flats in Devon and a block of flats and a three-bedroom house that's alongside the flats as well in Cornwall. So those properties, I've actually seen the outside of one of the properties, but I couldn't get an official viewing at the time because there were tenants living in there. And the one in Cornwall, I've never even been to. I've never seen it.
Hmm.
So, but I've got investors with both of those projects as well, and they were they were sourced through a reputable deal source that I know and trust. They'd done their detailed analysis to check the comparables in the area. I've also done my detailed analysis to check the comparables in the area for the rental income and for the prices of the flats that have been sold recently and are currently available. And it all stacks up. So you genuinely don't need to see the property. You know, if it works on paper, it works really. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
like £500,000 property I'm buying there with someone else's money.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to make both of us very happy because I was saying that those two deals will make me more in equity from my share than my 20-year pension with Jaguar Land Rover that I've got in there at the moment. So,
Wow.
and they've taken like 3 months to do.
3 months in terms of your putting the deal together, sourcing it, going doing all the numbers.
Yeah, yeah, and then actually doing the deals now. So we've got one that's almost due for exchange. We're hoping to exchange on the first one this week
Yeah.
and then complete by the end of the month. The other one's a little bit behind, but we'd arranged for a survey to be done a couple of weeks ago, but the unfortunately the owner's wife was ill or something, so we had to cancel that, and it's going to be rearranged for next week. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so that's all going through. As I say, I've got investors on both of those projects as well. The investor on the first one was actually my coach and mentor, so he'd been coaching me on all these strategies and different things to do. I wanted to run through my investor presentation with him before I presented it to any investors. So I did
Mm.
that. And he said, "How much money do you need?" I said, 120,000. He said, "Right, I'll give it you all myself." So he's
There you
like a
go.
millionaire. He's got lots of properties and stuff like that. But he said that he was looking for a project to work with me because I would do everything that I'm told to do. I put everything into action and have really taken action and done as I've been taught, really. So he wanted to work with me on the project, which was great. So
Love that. So let's then talk about the power of mentoring, the power of coaching, because what you've shared is you've had an extensive career as an engineer working in some big organizations. You've now semi-retired, if not nearly fully retired, doing this full time in under 12 months, which is staggering. Just talk to me about the power of mentoring, but also the power of proximity, having good people around you, and how that's helped you, not just so much delivering the results, but changing your whole mindset and your approach to I guess business, but also life.
yeah, yeah, it's it's been difficult to be honest because not everyone sort of backs you in these sort of things. Everyone thinks, "What are you doing now? You're crazy," sort of thing. So, but I think you're right. Surrounding yourself with like-minded people really helps. So I've been going to lots of networking events. There's two property networking events that I go to in Chester. I've been going to business networking as well, and also networking with other people. And they say like your network is your net worth or whatever.
Mm,
It really is. I've built up a massive network of trusted people now that I can go to. I've got my rent to rent business. I don't actually do anything with it now. I've got a cleaner that I trust and a linen. They sort the linen and the cleaning. A maintenance guy that I trust that I know can do anything for me. I've got a virtual assistant that works in Nigeria that does all my guest communications and handles that. And she also coordinates with the cleaners and the maintenance as well. So well, I did have seven properties, but we actually lost one because of
Mm.
a dodgy guest that we had at the start. So got evicted from that one. But yeah, the six that we've got left at the moment now, I'm pretty much hands free on that. I don't really get involved at all, other than just to pay the invoices for the cleaners and things like that. So yeah, that's about as far as I go with it, to be honest. So I'm managing that. That's bringing in about £20,000 a month revenue. Those six properties
Yeah,
from the contractors, and I literally don't really have anything to do with it. Really, just the odd text message here or there.
yeah. It's fascinating. And it's really important, as you mentioned, to keep yourself associated with people who not only are in your corner, but understand what you're doing and understand the direction in which you're heading. And it can give you really good advice. I'm sure in your career, maybe even the last 12 months, there's been some well-meaning people in your world that have said, "Hey, Dan, what are you doing? What are
What am
you
I doing
doing?"
now? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So can you talk about some of the maybe some of the challenges through this process? Because I mean I guess the success you've had and you're certainly by no means finished on your quest, but can you talk through some of the challenges? Because not everything is beer and skittles and many people, particularly in sales, have to deal with challenges. You mentioned just before you got one property that you got evicted from because of a dodgy guest, but what have been some of the other challenges you've had to deal with as you've, I guess, developed and learnt more about you, but also learn about the strategies and particularly around the type of people that you bring into the investments?
Yeah, so well, one of the most difficult thing for me really, because I was doing this alongside a full-time job, was I've not really spent a lot of time with the family. So I've had time where the whole reason for me doing this was to basically allow myself the time freedom and spend more time with the family and spend time with my dad playing golf and taking my daughters out and doing things. But basically, it's had the opposite effects, really, where I've just been so focused on getting this property stuff sorted that I've neglected my family a little bit and not seen enough of them. So it's had the opposite effect, effectively. So I'm trying to rebuild that now and
Mm,
get the family back on board. But they're my biggest critics, really. To be honest, they're the ones that don't like what I'm doing, don't want to know what I'm doing, but just think I'm making silly. It's all a big scam, or it's all it's so that has been one of the most difficult things for me, really. As I said, we had a dodgy guest. That was the child services actually booked one of our properties. They were the second guest that we had. They booked it through booking.com for a week, and there were two 12-year-old twins, uh, two boys, and two social workers that moved into the property for a week. And I found out on the seventh or the sixth night, that it was the last night. I think they were leaving the day after, that the police had been called out six times during the week. And these guys were causing mayhem with all the neighbors and everything. So I didn't know about it, but I was called by the agent and said, "Do you know who's staying in your property at the moment?" And I said, "Oh yeah, it's child services." And they said, "Oh yeah, did you know that the police have been called out so many times?" I said, "No, I didn't." And they said, "Well, the landlord doesn't like that, and you've got a week to get out, basically." So
wow.
we had to get all the furniture and everything's brand new. I've got it all in storage still. That was back
Yeah.
in when was that? April, I think that was. So yeah, I've got all that furniture in storage, but it's going to go into the new house that I've just picked up in the last couple of weeks.
Mm,
All the furniture is going to go into that property once I've got that refurbished. So
yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned that your family don't quite understand what you're doing.
yeah, they don't want to know.
Well, they don't want to know, but so let's just talk because there'll be people listening to this that are probably in a career doing things. They're in a sales role. They might be their own running their own business, and maybe there are people within there. I guess, closed circle, if you like, for want of a better term, who don't quite get or understand or want to understand um, what they're doing because they've come from an old paradigm where, hey, you get a job 9 to 5, you just do your thing and be happy with that. Um, can you talk to me about mindset and how challenging it's been and what you've had to overcome or learn about yourself in order to continue to push forward, given that you might have some critics close to home, but you continue to do that because you're still trying to create the win-win scenario.
Yeah.
How have you managed that, and what sort of work have you had to do in terms of your own mindset, your own approach?
Well, I've not found it too difficult, to be honest. I've had a mindset. So part of the mentorship program, we had a mindset coach as well that was going through, how we should be thinking. One of the biggest things that I learned from the start was the money mindset side of things, where you need to speculate to accumulate effectively. So like people are saying about, oh, I wouldn't spend £300 on Facebook ads, but that might get you £30,000 worth of investment or something. So it is worth it.
Yeah.
You've got to look at what you would do with that. So that's the biggest change that I've had in mindset, really. But other than that, I'm I'm just really, once I get my mindset on something, I'm really like, well, I call it dedicated. My wife calls me obsessed, and I say obsession is a term used by the weak to describe the dedicated, is the way I say it. But so I'm not obsessed. I'm just very, very dedicated. So I will give everything 100% when I'm getting stuck into something. So on that, I've joined another network as well called Sell My House Quickly, .co.uk. And their nickname for me is Action Dan because I just take action, I get stuff done. Basically, and I think that's one of the key things as well. Is I've been on a mentorship program with alongside about another 100 people, but I've accelerated my journey so much quicker than many others of them that are on that same, that have been doing it for the same amount of time because I have taken action. So they say knowledge is power, but it's not. Knowledge and action is power. But if you don't put it into action, you can know everything in the world, but if you don't put it into action, it's useless. So
Well, and with that, I mean, there are people in the world, and no matter what sort of industry, there are action takers and then there are thinkers, and there are both. There are
yeah,
action takers who are also thinkers, and sometimes you can overthink stuff. You just get stuff done, and I love the fact that you talked about knowledge is not power until you take action. How do you manage that though, in terms of the expectations you've got for yourself, the expectations you've got for the people closest to you? And I guess the risk tolerance that you've had to endure, because a lot of these deals, because you've gone from not being involved in this sort of area to now almost, I mean, you're talking about buying a commercial property, the hotel, and all these different other properties.
yeah,
Um, that takes a strong constitution, but it also takes you backing yourself and trusting that you're in the right going in the right direction. You've got the right information behind you. Um, just talk about that because you mentioned there's 100 people in the networking or the group or the
hmm
coaching mentoring group that some have taken action, others haven't. But you've just gone and said, "Bang, I'm doing this." Right?
yeah, yeah.
Here's the question: what makes you different?
I don't know. It's just the way because I have taken action. That's uh, there's a little bit of luck, I suppose, involved because there is a massive project nearby,
Yeah.
where a lot of other people are in different areas throughout the UK and don't have that luxury of having, hundreds of contractors on the doorstep that needs accommodation. And that's one of the common themes on the people that are doing well now. Of most of them have got long-term bookings with contractors if they've started with serviced accommodation.
Mm.
So that definitely has helped me. But I don't know anyone else that would take on 7 properties within a week, to be honest, if they were presented with them. So I don't know, maybe taking risks, but calculated risks, I suppose. And yeah, just taking risks, taking action. But I don't really see them as risks because the data was backing it up. So
Well, that's a really interesting point. I was going to ask you about your risk tolerance and your relationship with failure. I run a lot of programs for teams, and one of the programs I run this year was in relation to commercial decision making and helping people make decisions based on evidence and have more of a data-driven mindset through the
Hmm.
process. Because my experience is a lot of people make decisions, whether it be financial decisions or business decisions, and sometimes personal decisions, largely based on emotion and how they feel about that, and they trust their intuition. And for some, it serves them well, but for others, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
so your tolerance, your relationship with failure, but also your tolerance around risk. Um, Talk to me about that in terms of how you've, because there would have been some risk, there would have been some uncertainty, even though the data would have told you, there would have been something that said, "Well, is this the right thing to do?" How did you move forward despite that?
Um, I suppose the biggest risk with, well, the way that I took on so many in such a short time, the biggest risk was not getting them prepared quick enough to actually start making money from them, I suppose, because as I say, both my wife and myself are working full time. She helped me out with getting the properties set up, but it took around 4 weeks to get 7 properties set up. So with all the furniture, all the curtains, blinds, everything, we kitted out everything. And when it's run as serviced accommodation, you need to have all the cutlery, the crockery, everything else, all the gadgets, an air fryer and a toaster and a kettle and a microwave and TVs and all that sort of stuff. So we spent hours and hours like shopping basically alongside. I did have a really good contact from one of the agents gave me actually a guy that supplied furniture, Bennett's Interiors. They were fantastic. They provided basically all the furniture for all the properties.
Hmm.
Um, and some of the stuff was flat pack, and they'd bring it and set it all up, and everything was done. So that was a massive help. But that was, yeah, I suppose the biggest risk, I suppose, we'd taken on so many at that time was getting them done in
Yeah.
a reasonable amount of time, really. But we did it. We stuck at it and got them done. So
And do you think it's because you've done your due diligence so extensively and with your technical background, looking at the numbers and probably more of a data-driven individual just based on your career, that made it easier to look at it more pragmatically and say, you know what, the chance of this turning upside down and not being, you might, as you said, you might get a rogue tenant every now and then, but fundamentally the numbers make sense. So there's no real risk involved. Let's just do this.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah, that was it. And the only reason we put them out on Airbnb and Booking.com initially was because we didn't have contractors from day one.
Mm,
But there was an agency that I'm working with that we got 3 of the properties filled within the first couple of weeks after being prepared. Um, the last one we didn't actually get any contractors in because we'd put them out on a couple of bookings, Airbnb, as I say, and uh, and then we lost that one. So, but all the others have been fully booked with contractors since starting back in, well, March. The first contractors we got in, we
mm.
took them on at the end of February, and by the middle of March, we had contractors in 2 of the properties.
Yeah.
And then just week after week, then we got more contractors, and some of the contractors we've got in 4 of the properties at the moment were actually through a direct booking initially. They reached out to us and asked whether we had any more properties because they had more people coming over from the Czech Republic. So,
Hmm.
so we've got, but there a lot of those actually. So this is another one where there is a little risk, or there's going to be a period where we've got them empty for potentially a week or two over the next couple of weeks because next Saturday that contractor finishes their contract on site. So we've got 3 properties that are going to be vacated on Saturday. So I've been for the last week trying to find more contractors that are coming in,
Yeah.
and there are still lots about. So I'm not too worried, but it might take a week or so just
Yeah.
until it gets back to fully booked again. But yeah, but the demand's still there. I'm getting requests every other day for contractors, but they want it from tomorrow and they're not available yet. So that's always the way at the moment. So
We'll just go and source another property down.
I could do.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the more you talk, the more I think the apt phrase of action Dan applies because you're an action taker. So you do your due diligence, you run the numbers, and then you do the action and say, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'll mitigate the risk, and if I've got a property that's empty for a week, then hey, I'll put that into the process. But how much of it are you looking? Because you described at the start of the episode some of the numbers and some of the investors that are going to get returns higher than mutual funds and others. When you're
Mhm.
looking at investments like this, how far out do you look in terms of building the business cases? Is it the 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or you're looking further advanced in that in some of the decision making that you make?
Well, on those rent to rents initially, the ones that were closest to the plant are actually not great for holiday makers. They wouldn't be good for holiday lets,
Yeah,
but they are ideally located for the work that's going on in that area at the moment.
yeah,
So I only took those on a 2 year lease because
hmm
I knew the job was going on for 2 years. The other four are in Chester, so it's quite a nice area, quite a nice city. It's near the race course. It's near the town. It's near the centre. So I ran the numbers on that as contractor accommodation and as serviced accommodation for holiday makers and visitors to the area, and it worked out about the same either way. So I took those on for 3 years, knowing that after the 2 years when the contract is potentially finished, but these projects usually overrun, so the likelihood is it's going to go on for another 6 months after that.
yeah,
But the numbers were based around 2 years of contractor bookings and then 1 year of standard service accommodation bookings
yeah,
from tourists and visitors, sort of thing. So,
yeah.
but they're outperforming that at the moment. That 22% that I mentioned earlier, they're outperforming that at the moment. So it's looking good for those investors.
Nice. And when we're doing this, and it'd be remiss of me not to ask you in terms of managing, because you mentioned just then that it's outperforming what the forecast was. How rigorous are you in monitoring performance, matching against forecast, changing forecast, future projections and stuff like that? Is it something that you do on a religious basis, daily, weekly, monthly? Is it something you have a person in your network that does for you? How do you look at that so you know that you're on track and then you can make some changes if you need to?
Yeah, I'm doing it monthly, so I do a monthly wrap up at the end of each month when I get all my invoices from the cleaners, things like that. I've got a report that I do for my investors, so fill out all the details of all the income, all the outgoings, and then ship that out to the investor. But I know from that, the original proposal that I gave was that their £10,000 will be paid back in 14 months.
Hmm.
Um, we're now 8 months in, I think it is, from when we started, and there's only like 2,000 left, so that they're 80% of that. So it's likely going to be paid in 10 months,
Yeah,
not 14 months. So we're way ahead of where we should be by now.
yeah,
So that means they're going to get the 30% sooner, but they're going to continue to get that 30% for longer. So their payback will be actually more than the 6,600 additional to the 10,000 sort of thing.
yeah.
So if
And are
it can
these
continue
guys,
to perform.
yeah, cool. And are these guys, for want of a better term, passive investors, or are they more, or can they be more actively involved? So this can become like a behemoth in terms of an enterprise.
They are so all the investors that I've got at the moment are passive. Although on one of the Scotland projects, one of the investors, one of the 12 investors that I've got on there, has said that they want to be involved, and I said, yeah, we can do like a earn while you learn sort of scenario. So
Yeah.
I can share with you what I'm doing as I go through the process, and then if they want to do that themselves in future, they can do so.
Mm,
Yeah, so
nice.
I'm
Nice.
happy to do it either way. If they want to be completely hands off, that's fine.
Yeah.
If they want to be involved and find out what's going on, that's also fine. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. And in terms of attracting investors, obviously, and I'll ask you in a second in terms of what's the big grand plan for you. Has there been, apart from, I guess, your networking cohorts and the mentoring program you've been through, has there been any other strategies you've used to attract investors, maybe outside of that? And if so, what's your approach to that?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that they teach you on the coaching program is about uh, building your personal brand and getting the message out there of documenting your journey on social media of what you're doing. And I've had lots of people that have reached out to me that, people that I worked with 15 years ago and a guy that I worked with 2 years ago and a few other people have just seen what I'm doing. Somebody that I played rugby with 20 years ago, have reached out to me and said, "Oh, I really like what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Is there any way that I could get involved, either by investing or they want to look at the coaching program themselves?" So one of the guys that I worked with in China and with Jaguar Land Rover, um, he's actually just started the mentorship program in the last couple of weeks because he's seen what I've done using that knowledge.
Mm,
And I said, you've got to take action though. If you don't, then you might not get the results. But
mm,
he knows that from the start and
yeah.
he's willing to give it a go. So he's doing that again alongside his full-time job.
Yeah.
I said, you just got to be focused and get stuff done. So
Love it.
yeah, it's all been social media. I've had to say I've had a guy that I rode with about 15 years ago as well, who's also one of my investors as well now. So I've got different people, many of them from the mentorship program. Um, I've had companies approach me, so I've got two companies that have approached me as well that have seen, like the directors of the companies have seen me on social media, either on LinkedIn or
Mm,
Facebook, and reached out to me, and then the company is invested, sort of thing.
mm.
So yeah, so
And
worked the best for me at the moment, I think.
so it's interesting you talk about that because I often talk to sales teams and leaders and salespeople around the fact that your customers will first and foremost buy you before they buy your product.
Yeah.
And they know that if you're a person of integrity, if you're a trustworthy type of person, respectful, then there's a higher probability they'd like to at least investigate doing something with you. Um, So it's interesting you say that. And you've got to be consistent. So everybody's got a personal brand, but often that personal brand is how other people see you. So putting
Hmm.
yourself out there and treating people with respect and building a great reputation is fundamental to any successful career, whether you're becoming a property investor or a salesperson carrying a quota. So if you look back on the journey you've been so far, what's been the biggest lesson or the biggest realization about you that perhaps you didn't know, say, even 3, 4 years ago?
Um, it's I think it's how big my network was without me really knowing, because some of the people that have reached out to me, like I would never have thought that they've reached out to me.
Yeah.
And it's been growing a lot since then as well. I think I've gone from 1,200 friends on Facebook to like 3,600 or something now, because
Yeah.
I'm reaching out to lots of other people who are in property as well, and trying to work with other people as well and
Mm,
build that. But I think from the network that I had on LinkedIn and Facebook, really, which is the two main platforms that I've been using,
mm.
how wide that did spread, because I've been in various different roles, worked in different countries, worked in and so yeah, it was quite interesting. As I say, from rugby to rowing to ex-contractors that worked for me or I've worked with along the years and stuff. So yeah, it was quite interesting to learn about that, really, I suppose.
And moving forward, what's the if you feel comfortable, what's the big plan? What's the big vision? Because you've achieved a lot in the last 12 months or so. What's the big vision for you moving forward?
So I've got a plan already for the end of next year. So in the next 14 months or whatever it is. I want to be controlling £5 million worth of property, have £2 million worth of equity within those properties that I sort of own, and be earning about £23,500 a month profit from my property um, projects. Um, and it's not really about the money. It's about the time freedom, really, and giving me that time that I can spend with my family and with
Mm.
my dad's got Parkinson's, and he thinks he is deteriorating, but I want to spend time with him while I can. I didn't want to work until I was 65 and then miss that time with my dad.
Yeah.
So my first day of retirement, or the 1st of October, I took him out and we played golf, and he'd not played golf for 2 years. So that was great, and I want to do more of that. I want to. So it's money's just a way of getting time, really. To be honest,
Mm.
it's not about the money at all, really. It's
Yeah.
just about that time freedom and allowing me to go and see my daughter in Oxford, or go and watch my other daughter play rugby up in Newcastle, or go and spend time with my other daughter. It's
Yeah.
just that's what it's about for me. It's spending time with the family, spending time with my wife, and
Nice.
but without having to worry about anything. Go on holiday whenever we want. I want to get
Yeah.
over to Australia in 2027 for the World Cup. Get out
Nice.
there and follow England round. So
Yeah.
without
Nice.
asking the boss,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
key thing. So
Well, that's the thing. It gives you choice, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly.
Which is the phenomenal thing. No, I love that. And coming back to it, it's just purely been through taking action, because it would have been easy to look at it, continue to do what you were doing, but you said, hey, there's a different way. There's an opportunity for me. Yes, there's a bit of risk involved, but not when you actually do the numbers to the point where, hey, this makes sense. It's just a paradigm shift, and it's a
Hmm.
shift in thinking. So, good on you for doing that, mate, and greatly appreciate coming on the podcast. For people who are listening to this, want to know more about you and connect with you and learn about what you're doing, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, well, I've already mentioned that the things that I use the most really are Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So on Facebook, Dan Norcross. There's lots of them about, but I think my handle is dan.norcross.10.
yeah,
And on LinkedIn, I'm currently, although this is going to change in future, Dan Norcross, IN Gem IMechE, but I'm not going to be that anymore because I'm sacking off the IMechE because I don't really need to be paying out £326 a year or whatever for membership. As I'm not in engineering anymore.
yeah.
So that's me on LinkedIn.
Love
And I've got TikTok. I've got about 7,000 followers on TikTok, but I don't really use it, to be honest. And I've got
it.
um, Instagram as well, Dan Norcross on Instagram.
Nice. All right. I'll put all those on the show notes. And mate,
Brilliant, thank you.
if there was one parting message you wanted to leave people who perhaps they're sitting there thinking, oh, I know there's more that I could be doing, but I just don't know. What would be one parting message that maybe you could share with them to maybe create a little bit of momentum for them?
I would say it sounds easy getting into property, but wouldn't like to have taken these risks without a coach and a mentor. So I would say if you are going to do it or serious about doing it, then look at getting somebody that's been there and done it before,
Mm,
because it's quite expensive for coaching and mentoring, but it can be more expensive if you make mistakes doing it. So I would
yeah,
say, yeah, just don't just jump into it. Not every property works as serviced accommodation. You need to do the numbers. You need to know what numbers you need to do. You need to know
yeah,
the occupancy rates, the average daily rates, how often it's going to be filled, all that sort of stuff. But without that and without that knowledge, you could quite easily fall into a deep hole and end up losing a lot of money. So
mm,
that's one thing I'd like to share. Really, just make sure you're working with somebody that's been there and done it and will support you through it. Because if you don't, there's big mistakes that can be made. So
love that. It's literally the power of proximity,
yeah,
having people close to you and people you can trust, that have got your interest in the forefront of their mind as well, and creating those win-win outcomes is a key thing. So, Mate, it's I greatly appreciate you jumping on. I know it's late. It's close to 11 p.m. in the UK, so I do appreciate it. And thanks for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.